This is the Conservative Crusader.
Welcome back. This is the Conservative Crusader. My name is GOP Josh. Thank you for being here. Joining me now is someone I'd like to call a friend of the show. Joining me for the second time, he is a lawyer and state representative from the 16th District now, am I correct? Brian Stewart, thank you for joining me today, sir.
Thanks, Josh. Great to be with you. And all this map craziness, it's hard to keep track of, but we're now the 12th District.
12th District, I'm sorry. Sorry, I was thinking of Senate districts, I guess, there. So.
Yep, you got it.
All right, 12th House District. I apologize for that. So we've seen a lot of madness going on in Washington, or in Columbus lately. I get it all confused at this point. In Columbus lately, with the speaker vote, and a lot of it has to do with supposedly legislation you proposed. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So, at the end of last year, following the election, my friend Frank LaRose and I had a discussion about, an issue that we've been talking about a long time, which is that it's far too easy to for special interest groups and outside interests to amend Ohio's constitution. And, we just continually, election after election, see basically these terrible ideas bankrolled and, special interests trying to get their ideas into our constitution. And so what we proposed became House Joint Resolution 6, which would have raised the threshold for approving constitutional amendments to a 60% vote margin instead of a 50% vote margin. And this is consistent with, frankly, a lot of other states around the country that have, taken steps, just like we do in the United States Constitution, to prevent our founding governing document from being able to be amended simply with a 50% plus one vote. And so, for a whole host of reasons, in terms of attendance and just, the schedule, didn't quite get that done in the lame duck session. But it has been our hope and our plan up until this week that we would reintroduce it in this new General Assembly.
So with that, just to kind of build on that, you want 60% threshold there. Is there any recent constitutional amendments that were bipartisan and supported by the majority of people that didn't pass with more than 60%? I know both issues on the November ballot passed with over 60%, didn't they?
No, it's a great point, Josh, because that's critical. Good ideas will still pass with more than 60% of the vote. In fact, both issue 1 and 2, which I co-sponsored issue 2 this past election, which related to prohibiting non-citizens from voting in our elections. Issue 1 dealt with bail. Both of those passed with over 70% of the vote. Mm-hmm. Wasn't even close. So what we're really looking at, though, is it's these outside group initiated amendments that are sometimes closer, or even if they fail, it takes tons of time and money and effort to beat back these disastrous ideas. And so we've had gambling, written into our Constitution. We've had out-of-state folks trying to establish, marijuana cartels for themselves. We've had, California, billionaires trying to rewrite our pharmaceutical code. There's a lot of ideas that frankly just don't belong in the Constitution. Doesn't mean they can't be handled with statute, but they shouldn't be in the Constitution. Right. Good ideas will pass. What we're trying to do, though, is make it harder for these bad ideas.
Which is right. I mean, if the majority of Ohioans support the issue, they'll get out and vote for it. And if not, it shouldn't take just a 50+1 like electing someone to do that, especially if it's something like gambling that could be passed with statute.
So, exactly. And consider this, Josh. There is no ability under the United States Constitution to simply have an outside group or business propose an amendment.
Very true.
We don't let Facebook or ExxonMobil, or Google, draft the Google amendment to the Constitution and then simply put it up for a popular vote. We have safeguards in place for the Constitution. We simply want to provide the same protections for the Ohio Constitution as well.
Right, which doesn't seem like a bad idea, but some of your colleagues in the House of Representatives of Ohio believe it is. Can you tell us a little bit about that speaker vote that went down? I covered it a little bit last episode on Wednesday. But what happened with this vote, with this compromise candidate, so to speak?
Sure. Well, first, the only representatives that have, spoken to me and had concerns about my amendment are all extreme liberal Democrats. Almost the only groups coming out in opposition to this are extreme liberal groups. We had a speaker vote this week, and I think it's critical to kind of go back and say we had a speaker vote on November 16th as well. Mm-hmm. Historically, we have a meeting of the Republican caucus to select who is going to be our speaker for the new term. And on November 16th, we did so. We elected State Representative Derek Marin to be our speaker beginning on January 3rd.
The Republican
And
speaker won by a majority of Republicans in a supermajority Republican chamber, right?
correct.
Just want to make sure I'm following this.
Yes, we have a 67-seat Republican majority, and Representative Marin won the vote in caucus, and actually, importantly, Josh, after that vote, we then selected him unanimously by acclamation. That means we all say we are going to leave that room united and support him on the floor. All of the candidates for speaker, agreed to hold this vote, agreed to abide by the result. And then, unfortunately, in my view, what happened in the weeks since is that, a few members who didn't like the fact that their candidate lost decided to work with Democrats, frankly, and to work out a deal in which the 32 Democrats decided to play in the speaker's race in favor of Representative Stevens, and the result was that 22 Republicans voted for Jason Stevens, 43 voted for Derek Marin, but because the 32 Democrats preferred Representative Stevens, he will now be Speaker of the House.
So, do we know? I know I didn't really go over this, but do we know what they got in return? Those 22 Republicans that just abandoned the party, abandoned the base, the vote that happened.
Well, I'll speak on what we know based on news reports and based on my understanding of the negotiations of the conversations between Democratic leader Russo and Derek Marin. There have been multiple news reports in which Democrats have confirmed that it was their understanding that one of the parts of this deal was that my constitutional amendment to protect Ohio's constitution would be killed. There is also discussion of redistricting that somehow Representative Stevens was willing to make promises or conditions about how the redistricting process would be done in a way that Democrats preferred. I don't think we know the full scope of what that may be. I know that those were things that Leader Russo proposed to Derek Marin, and I know that he said no, he was not willing to deal on those issues.
Right. So has this historically been a vote where liberals also get engaged in? Because I don't imagine it would have been, especially when it was a tighter majority, that Democrats would get involved in who the speaker was. And now we're going into them actually fully picking it with a majority of Democrats voting and a minority of Republicans.
My looking at history, I'm only privy to recent history in which the last time this was done was two speaker votes ago. Former Speaker Householder, who's going to go on trial here in a couple weeks for the largest bribery scandal in Ohio history. He got the gavel by 25 Democrats and 25 Republicans joining together to make him speaker. So unfortunately, my concern with this whole process is, look, and if Derek Marin had lost our caucus vote, I would be first in line to be supportive of our choice. Right. If Jason Stevens had won that caucus vote, doing a deal with the Democrats is the furthest thing I think from the mind of the 43 who voted for Derek Marin. Right. But unfortunately, we've now kind of set this. I'm concerned about the precedent. That I'm concerned that now folks start to believe this is how it's done. To have a very hard fought, very hard won 67-seat Republican majority, and to have the Democrats have a role in picking the speaker that they like best, I think just doesn't sit right with a lot of us.
Absolutely. So I kind of want to move on to national implications of this. We're seeing a similar vote going on in the House of Representatives nationally right now. Obviously, you ran for a seat in that. What didn't go your way, of course, but and not trying to bring that up. I'm just giving some background for the listeners. Not trying to just
sure.
Sorry. So we're seeing the further right wing people, someone who maybe even a little further than the Speaker-elect Derek Marin, who actually won that vote, holding off on Kevin McCarthy. Could you see a compromise candidate between Kevin McCarthy and the Democrats, like we saw in Washington or in Columbus? I'm sorry, trying to get Kevin McCarthy over the line.
Well, it's an interesting question, and candidly, I've been so focused on Ohio. I've not I've had my TV on, like a lot of people, kind of seeing where they are in the process. My short answer is in this week of 2023, nothing would surprise me. I think that it's probably time to draw this to a close. But again, it's important that Republicans, we've got to get to a point where we have unity on the basics. I thought that one thing that united us at base, even if we disagree on other policies, is that we are opposed to the Democratic platform. Right? We are opposed to letting Democrats control what we do. So, the important thing at the national level, I wish it was as important here, is that we as Republicans support our own and, make sure that we are fully empowered to enact our agenda. But it's a strange week for sure, Josh.
So to move it back to Columbus, because I just thought of this, is the Republican caucus planning on standing up against this current speaker in any way, or are you still going to work to do what you can with this new, more bipartisan speaker?
Well, all of us were elected to represent our districts first and foremost. And I am going to fight for Pickaway County and Madison County and the portion of Franklin County that I represent. I'm going to introduce all the same bills that I would have under Speaker Mayer, and I'm going to introduce them all under Speaker Stevens as well.
Including the joint resolution?
It is my plan that I would bring that back, yes. And so, what I do is not going to change in terms of what I fight for and what I vote for. The question will be how much support and willingness we get from leadership to allow those things to move forward. But, we're in this fight. Nobody's taking their ball and going home. We are going to represent our districts, fight for what those districts need. We just need to make sure that we have, support from leadership as we do that.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today. How can people in your district get a hold of you and contact you about any questions they might have or just to learn more about you?
So we have our website, our official House website. Please check that out. It's got our official phone number, office hours, email address is rep12@ohiohouse.gov. Again, that is rep12@ohiohouse.gov. You can also find me on Twitter at Brian Stewart OH, at Brian Stewart OH, and we have a Brian Stewart State Representative Facebook page as well.
All right. Thank you very much for your time today, Representative. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Josh.
All right, folks. That is the state representative for the 12th district, not the 16th, the 12th district of the state of Ohio, Brian Stewart, about the speaker vote there. My name is GOP Josh. Right back after this on the Red Future Radio Network.
You're listening to the Conservative Crusader.